Hello everyone. In this session, we will see how to use AWS API Gateway instrumentation in order to observe the HTTP traffic in AWS REST and HTTP API gateways. To begin the proceeding, click on Connect. Please ensure that the workspace under which this integration is being created is same as the workspace under which the intended target is created. Let's click on Continue. Please give a meaningful note. Click on Continue. This will create the integration with the following sensor ID. Please note this sensor ID which is needed during the configuration. Let's open the help article. The solution deployment diagram looks fairly simple, where the AWS API Gateway will be instrumented using CloudWatch logs, and the Astra log parser, which is nothing but a containerized application, is going to retrieve these logs periodically from the CloudWatch, and then it's going to create the OTLP traces and post it to Astra traffic collector. This Astra traffic collector will then transform the trace and it will send to Astra backend. One thing to note here is that it's always recommended to install both the Astra log parser and Astra traffic collector in the same VPC. Another thing to note is that AWS provides detailed instrumentation for REST gateway, but only access logging for HTTP API gateway. Let's proceed with the installation now. There are certain prerequisites which needs to be met. First thing being configuring the tracing and logging for both the gateways, and then keep creating an access key and secret access key for the Astra log parser in order to retrieve the logs from CloudWatch. Next step is we will launch a VM, that is nothing but an EC2 instance, in the same VPC where Astra traffic collector is running. Then we are going to SSH into this newly created instance where we are going to install and run the Astra log parser. For that, another small prerequisite is to install Docker and Docker Compose. Let me log into my VM. I can show you that the Docker and Docker Compose is already present in my machine. Let's create a directory, working directory for installing Astra log parser. This will create the working directory for log parser, and along with that, this will also create a folder called as logs, which is going to be used during volume mounting for Astra log parser to write its log into this folder. Next step is to create the Docker Compose file. Let's create that. And let's copy this and paste it here. This Docker Compose file is going to pull in the image provided by GetAstra, and then it is going to mount the log volume that we have created just now. It is also going to take in an environment variable under the name .env. Let's save this and let's proceed to next step. Here we will have to create .env file and we'll have to fill in the following information. Let's create the .env file and paste the information. Sensor ID, which is shown during the creation of integration. This is the sensor ID. We'll have to copy this and paste it here. The OTLP endpoint is nothing but the Astra traffic collector endpoint, and I have already installed Astra traffic collector in the same machine. So the address of the IP collector will, the OTLP endpoint or nothing but Astra traffic collector will be localhost followed by the port 4317. If Astra traffic collector is installed in some other VM, then the IP of that VM should be given here, inside this. Next step is to give AWS access key ID. You can give AWS access key ID, which is generated as part of prerequisite. We will also have to give AWS secret access key. Then the AWS region. AWS region can be seen by looking at here. This should be US East. Please confirm your AWS region and give it as per that. And finally, the log group name. Please note that the last 4 information we have filled it based on the prerequisite that was followed earlier. Let us save this. Now let's proceed to next step. It is asking us to create a Linux service file under this so that the Astra log parser application can be used or can be managed using systemctl command. Let's create it and paste the following content. Let's close this. Now, since we have created the service file, we can make use of systemctl to enable or disable the service. Let's make use of systemctl enable command to enable Astra log parser. You can check the status of log parser after starting the service. It says that it's running and it is logging at info level. Great, this ends the setup part. Now we will see when we make a request to AWS API Gateway, how it is monitored and how the trace is finally generated and seen as part of inventory. So this is my API Gateway. This is REST API Gateway, and then the second one is HTTP API Gateway. As part of my REST API Gateway, this is my invoke URL of REST API Gateway. So here the intention is that the REST API Gateway is made to listen on API v1 and then a proxy variable, and it is going to return us a response for any of the method. Let's fire a request. Yes, we got a response. Similarly, let's go to the HTTP API Gateway, and this is listening on API v1 followed by proxy variable, and the invoke URL for this HTTP API Gateway is this. I've kept the URL ready and let's make a request. We got the response from both HTTP API Gateway as well as REST API Gateway. Now we will have to check in the inventory whether this endpoint has been observed or not. Please note that in order to easily differentiate, the HTTP API Gateway is having a path ending with testing HTTP API Gateway, and the REST API Gateway, it is having a path ending with testing REST API Gateway. Before checking our API inventory, let's see what traces has been generated by Astra log parser, and let's verify those traces by inspecting the logs of Astra traffic collector. Let's look at the logs of Astra traffic collector, which is nothing but our OpenTelemetry collector. Yes, we have received a trace for this REST API Gateway, and let us also inspect if we have got for HTTP API Gateway. We have got the trace for the HTTP API Gateway as well. Great! Now our Astra traffic collector has received this trace. Now it's time to verify whether we see the traces in our inventory. Let's load our inventory. and search for Amazon AWS. Cool. We have got HTTP API Gateway as well as REST API Gateway. These are the two traces which we had fired from our browser, and you can see that we have captured it a couple of minutes back. Great. That's all for this session. Thank you.